Welcome to the Complete Idiot's Guide on how to wheelie a Sur Ron X. So if you're watching this, you probably just bought a Sur Ron and you probably watched a ton of Sur Ron videos and you still suck at wheelies. Welcome. This is day one. We're gonna set our goal. Our goal today is just to get the wheel up. And we're gonna do that today utilizing the throttle. This is obviously not a stock Sur Ron. If you're watching this, you probably have a stock Sur Ron. To get the wheel up using the throttle only, you're probably gonna wanna be in sport mode, but you can try it in eco mode first. But before we do any of that, let's feel out the throttle. Here's what I mean about feeling out the throttle. You just wanna give it a few bursts and then slow down. A few bursts and slow down. So quick little burst, slow down. All we're doing is trying to feel where the power comes on in the throttle. It's gonna be really important to know where the power comes on in the throttle because a lot of these kind of have like a dead spot. So understanding where that comes on is gonna help you figure out how much throttle to give it just to get the wheel up. A real quick tip while you're trying to feel out the throttle is get used to using the rear brake only to slow down because you'll realize how important the rear brake is when you're trying to learn how to wheelie. So go ahead and do a few more of these and slow down with the rear brake. All right, now that we got a feel for it, we're just gonna try to pop it up using the throttle only while also covering the rear brake. And it's gonna be a little scary at first, so don't worry. This is where you're gonna start to mess around with where you're sitting at, just to try to get it up. At first, it's just gonna be like an inch or two, but that's still progress. So as you get comfortable with popping it up using the throttle only, practice shifting your weight back to get a little bit higher. You might even pull back a little bit. Just like that. There you go, just like that. And that's essentially how the whole first day is gonna go. You might get it a little bit higher than that, depending on how confident you are with wheeling. But for day one, you just kind of wanna feel it out. You wanna feel how the bike reacts. Everybody's weight is a little bit different. So depending on who you are, you may need more throttle, you may need less throttle. And you can also start experimenting with where you sit on the seat and really try to find a sweet spot where you're comfortable enough to just be cruising along and just pop it up. Okay, this is like day 1.5. If you're comfortable from day one popping it up, this next technique is probably the best way that I've learned how to wheelie thus far. Basically, it's with 2 feet down and working on popping it up. For this, you might want to start in eco and take it off of sport mode, but later on you'll realize that eco is not enough to do this technique on a slow, balanced wheelie. Just make sure to keep that index finger on the rear brake. Here we go. With 2 feet on the ground, you want to pop it up. Just like that. I'll demonstrate again. When you're first starting out, you're gonna look down like this and pop it up like this. You don't wanna do that. And it is gonna take some time before you start to realize that looking forward is a lot better than looking down. But the goal for day 1.5 is, again, 2 feet on the ground and popping it up. Just like that. I'm throttling and kind of pulling back at the same time and also hitting the rear brake to bring it down. Throttle pull back, rear brake down. Throttle pull back, rear brake down. And the goal here is to get it as high as possible and bringing it down. Just do this for a little while and get comfortable with the bike coming up and down. And your forearms are gonna be sore. Okay, day 2 is gonna come fast because day 1 is really just popping it up. It's the very, very basics and trying to feel out how everything kind of works together. Once you're able to pop it up with both feet up and with both feet down, what you're looking for is just a higher front wheel. That might be a combination of you scooting back, giving it more throttle, and pulling back. Just don't forget about the rear brake. Your rear brake should be the first thing you reach for every time you're wheeling or practicing wheelies. Just get in a habit of using the rear brake. So in day 1 to day 1.5, your front wheel might look like this, but for day 2 our goal is to get it up higher than that. So look forward and use a combination of sitting in the right spot, the right amount of throttle, and pulling back. Here we go. It's gonna look something like that. Do it again. And your goal should be to get it higher every single time. And it's gonna look exactly like this because you're gonna get scared, you're gonna tap the rear brake, and that's okay. This is how you learn to get comfortable being on one wheel. Here we go. Okay, you're gonna do this probably for the whole day, depending on how much stamina you have and depending on how sore your forearms get. But once you start figuring out how to get it up, you're gonna naturally figure out how to keep it up. Because eventually what you're essentially doing is getting the bike up to balance point while your feet are on the ground. Let me demonstrate what that looks like. Once you get the concept of bringing it up with your 2 feet, you're eventually gonna be balancing. Watch. That's balance point. Here we go again. That's balance point. And that's essentially what it should look like by the end of day 2 or the start of day 3. The feet on the ground technique is what really helped me progress a lot faster. I was able to find balance point and get really comfortable with the wheel really high up in the air. And this is kind of where patience is a virtue. I practiced the 2 feet down technique sporadically, and it was for like 5 to 10 minutes every time I would go out and ride. And honestly, doing it that way didn't really help me. What really helped me figure it out was practicing 10 minutes a day for almost 2 weeks straight. I'm actually still working on my wheelies right now, and I've been posting on YouTube Shorts my wheelie progress from like day 1 to day 9, and 10 minutes a day is really where I saw a lot of improvement. You might be wondering why the heck I'm trying to teach you guys how to wheelie when I'm just learning it myself. And the truth is, I've watched a lot of how to wheelie videos, and it's a lot of experts teaching these wheelie videos, which I think is great. A lot of their techniques are awesome, and I'm sure they help once you figure out these very basic steps to even get you started. The problem I found with their videos is it was just a lot of tips and techniques if you could already figure out how to get it up. None of them really explained what it takes from day 0, and I feel like learning from somebody who's also learning with you might give you a boost of confidence. Like, if I could do it, your ass can fucking do it too. Okay, so day 4, we're gonna call it the pump. And the pump is exactly what it sounds like. You're pumping the front suspension to help the front come up a lot easier. And we're gonna do it with our feet down. Something to note here is the position of your hand, mainly your throttle hand. When you're pumping, you don't want your hand like this. You actually want it up here, because once you got the bike up, your hands are gonna be naturally in a comfortable spot. If you start this way, your hands are gonna be down here, and it's gonna be extremely awkward. So remember, when you're pumping, figure out where your elbows go and keep track of your hand position. Again, everybody's gonna be a little bit different depending on height, length of your arms. There's so many factors, but essentially, you don't wanna start the pump in a position like this. You want it somewhere close to this. All right, so here's what that looks like. Both feet on the ground, kinda up here, and I'm gonna pump it down and pull back. And again, cover that rear brake. Here we go. Just like that. Now I'm gonna try to ride with it. Once I'm up to balance point, my hand is in a comfortable spot, comfortable enough to roll the throttle on and off. I'll demonstrate again. All right, now I'm gonna show you that same technique without keeping my hands up here. I'm gonna keep them in a comfortable spot and try to pump it up. You see how awkward my wrist was? Watch. It put me in an awkward spot when I had the wheel up, and I actually had a hard time keeping it up or even getting it higher than about a foot. So you really want to focus on where your wrists are, how they're positioned. It's almost like I'm putting my fists towards the ground. Just like that. So here's what it looks like in real time. Just like that. And you're really just gonna wanna do this for a few days and just really get a feel for how it works. This is gonna help you get comfortable with the wheel up and your body back. And it might look like you're walking it in the beginning, which you kinda are. And it's gonna be a complete workout like the first week. You got new muscles developing, you're probably nervous. It's gonna take time to get really comfortable with the wheel up like that. But when you're ready to move on, here's what you do next. So once you get comfortable with the wheel up and your feet down, and you're kind of playing with the throttle and the rear brake to keep it up for a really long time, you can practice getting your feet on the pegs and bringing the bike down. Let me demonstrate. So you're up, 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 feet. It's gonna be scary, but trust me, this is gonna help a lot. Just like that. Just like that. So at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, how does getting my feet on actually help me? Well, when you're wheeling, your feet aren't gonna be on the ground. But essentially what we're trying to do is try to get the feel of what it's like to have the front wheel up and our feet on the peg. Another way to do that is find something that you can set your front wheel on in almost like a wheelie position, at the same time trying to put your feet on and keeping it balanced, like this. So find something like this, and you're gonna want the bike off for this, but essentially what you're trying to do is get your feet up and try to hold it like that. You're gonna do this for a little while. So get your feet up and try to hang on for as long as you can. This is gonna help you in the long run find the balance point and develop those muscles that'll help you keep the bike up. And then once you're good enough, you can kind of like turn it on and keep it on like a low setting, and you can feel the throttle a little bit and just move it forward and backward like this. I know it feels goofy at first and it kind of looks goofy, but I promise you, this is really gonna help you get comfortable being in this position. And it's super tiring. But do this day 4, day 5-ish. Use this technique to help you get comfortable being in that position. I promise you it helps. It helps a ton. Okay, so week 2, this is when you're gonna start to combine everything that you're doing. The pump, the pullback, the throttle. You're gonna try to look forward and you're gonna try to lean back. But the most likely thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna look kind of down and you're gonna lean forward. It's just the natural progression of any beginner wheelie. You're gonna end up doing this thing called the power wheelie, where basically you're wheeling like at a high rate of speed because you're gonna wanna give it more throttle to keep the front wheel in the air. And power wheelies have been the vein of my existence right now. But basically it's an important step to get you to the next step, which is balance point wheelies, which is something that I'm still trying to learn how to do. But here's what the power wheelies are gonna look like. A power wheelie is essentially a combination of everything you've learned thus far. The pump, the lean back, the look forward, the throttle. Try to be relaxed all at the same time while keeping your index finger on the rear brake, sometimes using it to stop your wheelie, but most of the time you're just gonna be letting go of the throttle. And that's gonna be your wheelie for a while. You're gonna wanna experiment between eco and sport mode, but eventually you're just gonna wanna keep it on sport mode. Because personally for me, I don't think eco is enough to get the front wheel up to balance point. So sport mode is gonna be your go-to power mode when you're doing all your wheelies from this point on. All right, so here's some important tips to end this video. These are things that other people have given me as advice, some from other videos that I've seen on YouTube, and some from personal experience. Use your phone to take videos of you learning. You don't need a fancy camera to do this. The point of doing this is to see how far your wheel actually comes off the ground. Sometimes it's gonna feel like the wheel is really high off the ground, and then when you see the video of it, you'll realize that it's really not that high off the ground. So taking videos of your progress really helps. Don't be afraid to lean back a little bit. I'm not saying do wheelies like this, all the way lean the freak back. What I'm saying is when you're doing your power wheelies, practice leaning back a little bit more every time until you get really comfortable with this position right here. One of the mistakes that I've made that's causing me to do a lot of power wheelies is I'm keeping my arms like this and trying to bring the handlebar towards me. That's completely normal, it's natural. But what you want to do instead is keep your arms kind of as extended as possible to a point where you're finally at balance point. And really that's where your wheelie should be. It shouldn't be like this, trying to chase the wheelie with the throttle. It should be in a relaxed position like this, balancing between the throttle and the rear brake. Another thing is just really take your time learning this stuff. What really helped me was the 10 minutes a day for about 2 weeks with like a day or two of break in between. Having the breaks in between lets your muscles rest and your mind kind of forget about everything. Coming back with well-rested muscles and a well-rested mind actually helps you wheelie better, because when you come back for some reason, you just have more confidence. It's a little weird, but definitely try to do like 10 minutes a day for like 3 or 4 days straight. Take a day or two in between and then do it again. That helped me a lot. The last tip I'm gonna give you is to set goals for yourself. The reason I made my video this way is because that's really how I got to where I am now. I set small goals every single day for about 10 minutes a day. Even once I started figuring out the power wheelie, I would find lines in the street or wherever parking lot I'm practicing at, and I'd tell myself that I got a wheelie from this line to this line, and that would be like my goal for that practice day. And what would happen is I ended up power wheeling for a lot longer. Now one of the goals I'm setting for myself is to do slower, taller balance point wheelies, and that's something I'm trying to figure out now. But essentially these basic steps is what got me to where I am, and I really hope it'll help you guys. I haven't seen like a day 0 video explaining the things that I'm trying to explain, especially with the feet. But again, I think those guys that are teaching it are like fucking wheelie experts, and they may have forgotten what it's like from day 0 trying to learn and trying to figure this all out. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if this actually helps or if this is complete bull. One final tip, always keep your feet on the pegs. Don't be trying to take them off to save yourself. It's not gonna work. What's gonna save you is the rear brake.